Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up, pick it up.
You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus.
Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up.
You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus.
Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up.
Ooh, I've been on the flex since flex on. Neighborhood all in your eardrums. I ain't never scared like Bone Crush. Boy, I got God, don't fear none. My line busy, take no calls. Feels like I don't have no flaws. Snakes in the grass, cut those off. Yo, squad shitty, my bros raw. No breaks, we go, 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 go. Throw shade, that's a no, 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 no. Go high, go low, low, low. Like spinning in a 644. Cash money like 504. Ball like AD24. No sleep, need more, more, more.
Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up, pick it up.
You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus.
Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up.
You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus.
Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up.
Ooh, I'm a real one, my day ones. Try to speak up, can't say none. Try to dig dirt, there ain't none. I make the money that save up. 10 to 80, my save ones. Take to the top on the base one. New car, race on. Fast lane, pace on. With the booyah, that's a flex. Not human, I am from another planet. I'ma teleport my advantage. I'ma wake up, do damage. Join number 7.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the CCF Podcast. Hope you all are doing well. Man, that intro gets me going every single time, especially after this week. This week of football was just amazing for Air Force, CSU, and Colorado. I think every team came out in many ways winners. Some, even though some of them technically lost. So joining me today with me is Rick Baum. He is right on my left. Yeah, there we go. You can get him at Falcon8 Fan. And you can, underneath is Tony Casolo. We have him at Lots of Boba Fett. Give him a follow. So guys, where do we start?
That was a crazy weekend.
That was a crazy weekend. I think, for me, just watching a few of those games, I just a lot of them came out the way I didn't think. So I really did enjoy the whole weekend. Any games stand out to you besides the ones that we're going to cover?
Well, I mean, you even look at like what happened in Boulder there. You had a game that was much closer than the 20-point spread. But that was kind of endemic of the entire weekend. You had South Carolina playing Georgia really tough. You had I think it was 10-10, Wyoming, Texas going into the fourth quarter. I mean, a lot of these big spreads, when you look at it and say, these are all going to be blowouts, those are the kind of weekends that really jump at you and go, oh, no. We're college football. We're going to keep the games much closer than you expect.
I have to ask real quickly, just because I've gotten flack for saying this. What are your thoughts on Ewers as a quarterback? Some people have been saying first, second round for him. I've not felt very good about him. I haven't seen him play as much this year, obviously. But for me, it seemed like he was getting a lot of scheme touchdowns. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, he's had kind of a slow start to the season. It wasn't just that Wyoming game, but kind of all of those games. They've won. They've looked impressive. Obviously going into Alabama and beating them there. But you even look at it, he has had a slow start to the season where maybe you think, is this really him playing at that level, or is it all the talent around him? I think his story has yet to be written. I think we're going to have to take the season in whole, but he's definitely had a slow start to the season.
Most definitely. Rick, anything else pop out to you, or are you ready to start talking some Air Force?
Oh, man, I was in college football overload if there was a thing. So, I started watching, of course, on Thursday night, and then my game was on Friday.
Right.
And, Saturday was all day. What I typically do is I watch as much as I can of every conference game. And the one that stood out to me in the Mountain West Conference was Vandy and UNLV. They ended up having to go to their second-team quarterback. They're at that beautiful Allegiant Stadium, and they pulled it out. So, they're going to be better than we thought. And, of course, I always preview our upcoming opponent, San Jose State, lost at Toledo. So, there you go.
Shout out to the Rebels. It's my brother's alma mater. So, let's go Reds.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, let's get going real quick here then, guys. Let's start off with where do you guys want to start? Should we start with let's start with the Air Force and move on to the big game. How about that? So,
Sounds good.
that may be the best mascot in the entire Colorado, really. I'm not saying anything bad about any of the other Cam the Ram or anyone else, but or Ralphie or anything like that. But that's something special. So, Rick, tell us a little bit about the game. Give us a little bit of a recap and let us know what happened.
Well, first of all, I sent you guys each one of those, and I posted on our page. I took the live one this week from the end zone, so it was pretty neat. They had a little different setup this week. They had the three going on. They had, I think it was the carrier and flanked by two fighters. It looked great, and they did a couple double jumps on the parachute. So the pregame entertainment was thumbs up this week.
Yeah.
Now, were they able to keep track of all those planes after the game, or is that just in South Carolina where they lose that fighter jet?
Yeah, that's exclusively to South Carolina.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
They don't have radar that works there or something. So that was funny. Anyways, as far as the game goes, it went kind of the way I had predicted, which it doesn't typically happen when we do that stuff. But I just, after spending the week with the guys, I saw something different. First of all, talked about last week that Utah State represented 25% of our losses over the last 3+ seasons. We are now at 34-8 overall in that time span. The game plan was pretty simple, as it typically is. Give the ball to the fullback. In that case, it was Owen Burke to start off. Then fifth-year senior Emmanuel Michel, who, if he had his career just exclusively against the Aggies, would probably be a Hall of Fame back, because he scored something like 5 touchdowns and ran for 300 yards in 2 ball games against them. So excellent game. We threw the ball a little bit. Zach Larrier looked very proficient, 3 of 4 passing. Defense was dominant. I was in that end zone when Alec Mock sacked Cooper Laga of Utah State, fumbling the ball, and it miraculously jumped into Trey Taylor's hands with nothing but turf ahead of him, and he hit it off his knee, and Bo Richter recovered it. So I had to give him a little bit of fun on that one, but that's one of those things where, the defense dominated again.
Yeah, real quick question. How fast did it feel like that first quarter went with Air Force getting 22 points and essentially setting up the rest of the game, basically, where Utah State was essentially down a significant amount?
Well, something happened that I've never seen before. I've never seen that momentum shift so early, and typically it's something that happens later in the game, possibly even in the third or fourth quarter. But really, on that Friday night, we scored the first time we had the ball, which is, this is what we do. But then 2 straight offsides penalties by the Aggies gave us an opportunity to go back and give it to the fullback and go up 8-0. And really, it was downhill after that.
When you look at that, especially with how efficiently that they were able to run with the fullbacks, was that something where Utah State was trying to key on that outside? Because, obviously that's your first option when you're running the triple option is that fullback. Were they keying off the running backs, or were they just able to pound up the middle? What was going on there?
Well, I had seen film from Iowa and film from Idaho State, and they've got some very active linebackers and some really good size defensive line, but to a man, they have played soft up to this point And I think we picked up on it. That trap was opening holes that John and you could have ran through. So yeah, definitely what I had seen, but not really what I completely expected as far as dominance goes.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to talk about is just in general the running backs being able to get over 5 yards per carry, except Emmanuel Michel, because he was getting 3 touchdowns. So why don't we talk a little bit about the running game and how it was so efficient? Again, most of the guys getting the lowest was 5.6 yards per carry for Zachary Lair, excuse me, except again for Emmanuel Michel. So what were your thoughts there?
Well, it's typical Air Force blueprint, right? It's like we hit you with so many straight on punches to the jaw that when we hit you with that hook or that uppercut, you don't see it coming. So on one occasion, 8 straight runs up the middle and then a pass for 25 yards. 7 straight runs up the middle and then a wide side pitch to John Lee Eldridge, first for 21 yards, and the second one was a 13-yard touchdown. So they start pulling everybody up because they expect what we all expect, and when we don't do it, typically they're on their heels.
Okay. You mentioned that, that defense and how great that they looked against Utah State there. One of the things that we had previewed coming in was the need to replace a couple of those cornerbacks. You look at the stats, you see 7 pass deflections, you see an interception, you see 5 sacks. Kind of speak to that about how those new cornerbacks, defensive backs are integrating into the defense in order to stifle an attack that has given them problems in the past.
Well, I have been surprised about that. When we did our season preview, I thought that might be a weakness on this defense. We had Jerome Galliard had a blow-up hit. He actually is a little bit banged up this week. Jamari Bellamy had a big game. Trey Williams has had an impact on this team. Losing Camby Goff allowed the arrival of C.J. Boyd. C.J. has been amazing. That pick that you referred to was a one-hander by linebacker Jonathan Youngblood, who is probably right in the mix with Mock and Richter as far as effectiveness. And then, this defense centers around number 7. Trey Taylor is the captain of the defense. And, what can you say? This team has won 8 in a row, 5th longest streak in the nation. During that streak, we've given up 10.8 points per game. This defense is real, and not just conference-wise. It's real nationally once again.
Yeah, it really feels like that, across the board, Air Force is getting a lot of just energy. I've seen for rankings for how the stadium is in liveliness. A lot of people are having Air Force in those rankings. I understand that the stadium's a little bit different right now, but that still means that, everyone's coming out and they're live and they're excited. So it's great to see what's going on for Air Force there. And it seems like the coaching staff has them, starting to get going and ramped up, and they're going to be comfortable now and start running.
Absolutely. And, I'm glad I went first because I want to see the back and forth with you guys in that amazing game that happened, even delayed late on Saturday night.
Yeah, you guys
into Sunday morning.
Yes, good point. Why don't we go there, and we will real quick.
I was going to half say that we should play the CSU entrance because we definitely need to give them their flowers for how they came and played. Yes, they skirted the line when it comes to some of those hits, and we'll get into that and the penalty yardage, but they came ready to play. I was impressed by them.
Oh, yeah, I was very impressed. I don't think anyone really expected that, especially in that kind of environment. Let's be honest. CU was rocking all day. I'm sure you were there for the festivities. There's so many different, just celebrities that were there, all those different things, College game day being there. it felt like it really did start the night before, really, honestly, on Friday. So it really felt very hyped, and every single person, when that game was getting ready to go, that the whole entire stadium was packed. I think it said 106% of capacity was filled.
Oh yeah, and it was rocking. It was loud in that stadium. It was ready to go. And you can't.
Would you guys agree that shocking is an understatement as far as the outcome and events of this game?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would have to go with that.
Yeah, that mind blowing, whatever you want to call it. I mean, I think this was a huge game for both teams. Colorado needed to get the win, obviously, to keep where the program's going and show the momentum. I think that's something that they just want to keep in the top 25. That obviously would have kind of knocked them out pretty much effectively. So I think for them, they got the dub, and for CSU, honestly, I think they get a win in this loss even. This is good for keeping their recruits, because again, they had a slow start last week, or week one. So I really felt like they needed to come out and show something to all their recruits to get them keep coming and not to essentially leave, especially their 4-star guys in Ross and Curry, especially at quarterback. So very excited about that. But at the same time, CU probably did a very good job in recruiting with having their guys on the sidelines. I mean, I saw a long list of names, and everyone was having a good time, it looked like.
Yeah, and I got a front row view of a couple of those big time prospects, even to the point where, I won't say which one of them, but let's say one of those 5 stars was even in the post-game press conferences. So he stayed well into Sunday morning. So it was a great recruiting tool. And like you said, you can always, it is a little bit of orange slices mentality when you talk about a win or a loss being a win. But I mean, you have to give it to CSU. They definitely showed up. They punched CU right in the mouth. And I think behind closed doors, you'd probably like to hear from those CU coaches and say, it's nice to get a little humility. Maybe they were reading their own headlines a little bit, to the point, they came out maybe a little flat and really needed to gather themselves in that second half in order to win the game.
Yeah, so let's just start off with the game in general, the beginning. What were your thoughts on kind of just how the game started? It felt like the momentum really was going CSU's way at the beginning, honestly.
Well, and kind of just to speak to that first quarter, how weird it was, where it lasted almost an hour. CSU's first 2 plays both resulted in penalties. CU gets a big stop, and the place is rocking. And then, one of those weaknesses we've kind of talked about, that offensive line lets some pressure in on third down, interception for CSU, just kind of deflates the whole crowd. Then you get the pick 6 from Shiloh Sanders. So again, that up and down in that first quarter. And then CSU goes on to score the next 14 points, including a defensive touchdown of their own. It was a weird and crazy first quarter that included, in my opinion, a very dirty hit on one of the premier players in all of the country.
Let's first talk about him medically first. Why don't you tell us how he's doing?
Yeah, so there was an update this week today, for anyone that didn't hear. Travis Hunter did suffer a lacerated liver. Again, this just goes to show you how dangerous this game is.
Violent.
These guys.
I mean, these are hard impact plays, even with all those pads. There's only so much they can get away with.
Yeah, exactly. So he has suffered a lacerated liver. He probably will be out at least 3 weeks. Hope to see him back, get healthy. Of course, we want health is over everything in this game. So we need to get him healthy, keep him out the requisite time so that he can heal and get his body right.
Boy, that is scary, especially considering, he got out there right away, which he really put himself in more jeopardy.
Yeah, exactly.
I honestly thought it was a broken rib at worst when he came back in then, or something, maybe like a contusion of his rib. That was my theory, because I saw him grabbing his side, so that really is what I thought it was, but it was nothing like that. And I want to talk to you about Henry Blackburn in the sense that did you think that was an intentional kind of hit?
I did. And when I say that, you can see there are stills that happen. Now, to the point where I'm saying he's trying to cause internal injury, no. To the point where he's trying to hit someone late and send a message, absolutely, it was intentional. You see there's a still where the ball has already fallen to the ground. He's probably good 5-6 yards away from the play, and it's still lining him up. So, I think there's definitely time to slow down, not make that hit. Obviously the injury makes the hit worse, but to me, it was intentional to send a message, not ever to the point of trying to cause massive injury like it did, but to the point where it was intentionally trying to hit someone late. Yes, I believe it was intentional.
Yeah, those guys were so fired up. That stadium was rocking. The CSU section was backing them up. I think they just wanted to send a message themselves. They're tired of being called little brother JV team. They've had enough of that. They feel like that they belong in at certain times. They feel like they can make the jump into other conferences like the Big 12 at the time, like the Pac-12. When it was alive. So they were really looking to send a message to CU that they were for real. For me, I didn't see that still. So I was just going based off what I saw on the game film and at the angle I saw it as in the replays. And I honestly thought his head was just turned in a way where it seemed like his own player was in the way where he couldn't see it. Now, again, was he going to lay down a hit on purpose? Yes, but I don't see it being intentional. I just didn't see it that way. But again, maybe that was too much of that adrenaline rushing, that kind of thing. But Rick, what were your thoughts? Because you were watching this game too. Let's be honest, Rick. Come on.
Of course, I was. We play CSU 28th of October, so I watched every play. I think there was definitely some malice, not intent to harm, like Tony was saying. But
so do you think he could have been able to stop? That's the biggest question. Could he have stopped?
Absolutely. He could have stopped 5 yards earlier.
Okay.
One of the things that really got my attention were some guys I guess I haven't been paying attention to. That Harrison, holy cow, he looks man, he looks good. And on the other side of the ball, minus the 23 minutes of being injured, Kamara looked like Von Miller.
Oh yes, he's been their star on defense. He's been very, in my mind, he's also very dominant when it comes to setting the edge as well. He does a very good job at that. And again, he's gotten up to the quarterback in all of in the other game essentially as well. So he is someone to watch for as a future kind of draft pick, I think, at this point. But when it came to some of the other things that you were talking about, it really felt like for me, maybe I was just being biased, because I feel like that was not really a malice hit, like you said. Maybe that's where I'm trying to get at. But again, he could have stopped. You guys are right. Maybe I should just let it go. And it's gone crazy. It really has become a crazy thing. So I understand why CU fans are mad. I think, if I was in 100% with CU right now, not doing some CSU coverage and some Broncos stuff, I think I'd be very, very angry. If it was just me back when I was at school, I would be very angry.
Well, so I want to get your guys' thoughts. So there has been kind of that proposal out there that maybe he should have been suspended after that hit. Now, obviously, it doesn't condone the behavior of like a Shedeur Sanders trying to poke Kamara in the eye, all the other stuff that happened after it. But just looking at that play where you've seen with some of these targeting rules where guys have gotten thrown out for a lot less. Now, obviously, that created a situation where you have a Shedeur Sanders, not once, but twice, running up and talking some shit to him right after the play, and then right after the touchdown that he threw on that possession. Kind of get your thoughts there. I'm kind of the opinion that when the NCAA trumpets player safety and you see a hit like that, as egregious as that, I think you got to evaluate it for possible ejection, but wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that.
Yeah, I'll go real quick. Yeah, that has to be evaluated by the NCAA, and I think that's something that, for me personally, if they didn't get it right in game, you can get it right after the fact, and at least have it be for the suspension kind of for the next game. And I understand that completely. Again, it's one of those things where I'm looking back at the Broncos this weekend a little bit, and we saw Kareem Jackson do a similar egregious hit. We'll just say they weren't a similar kind of hit, but they were egregious. Going to, Kareem Jackson was going to the head. It really was a targeting kind of move, and he was removed from the game. So if you look at it that way, I think then Blackburn should have been ejected. Yes, I agree 100%.
And I think even to that point, sorry, before we get to your answer, Rick, the NFL has already come out and said that they're going to look into possible further repercussions, because that's 2 weeks in a row for hits like that on Kareem Jackson.
Yeah.
I looked at, some of the similar hits over the weekend, and there were 4 that caught my attention. And of those 4, half were ejected. In this case, I think what really brings to the attention of the fan and more importantly the home base is the injury caused by, right? Had it been he popped right back up, has a Hunter-like game, nobody would have really said a lot about it. But the effect produced was pretty catastrophic and possibly deadly.
Yeah, I mean, when you say it like that it, he was in the hospital for internal bleeding and all those different things. Yes, it does make it more egregious, I think. I hate to say this, you guys have convinced me that a suspension is probably actually needed. I hate to do those kind of after the fact when he wasn't, called on the play, but it was that kind of egregious kind of hit. I mean, it just really was. It wasn't necessary.
Well, I think even beyond that, it kind of helps to maybe lower the temperature a little bit, because some of the stuff that we've seen beyond that, and CU fans, if you're participating in this, knock it off. Like the death threats and all the other crap that they've been throwing out there, that is beyond ridiculous. It's a football game. Yes, late hit, cheap hit, injury sustained, but to stoop to that level is just ridiculous. They've got to be better than that. I won't absorb them into the entire CU fandom and blame everyone, but to the people that are doing that is ridiculous. So let's get beyond that a little bit, John.
Yes,
because I want to move
on. There was lots to this.
There was lots to this game. So obviously this is one where CSU kind of dominated the entire game, and they used a very simple game plan. Utilizing those shallow crosses to just kind of beat up the Buffs defense. But I want to get your guys' thoughts. What were you thinking with 2 minutes and 6 seconds left as you see the punt roll out at the 2-yard line? Because I know what I was thinking, but I won't spoil that for you guys. What are you thinking with CU taking over the ball down 8 with only 2 minutes left?
Well, I'll tell you exactly what we were thinking, because we were texting, and my buddy there, John, said, "Is this another Cleveland AFC Championship John Elway 98-yard drop?"
Yes.
And I replied, "Oh no, not going to happen." And man, it happened, and it happened in a big way. And to CU's delight, the guy that got burned at the end was Blackburn, and it was kind of a just fitting payback.
Yeah, I think everyone that was really upset about the hit at that time, again, before knowing what happened and what was being really going on, I think they were ready already about it. So, that was definitely salt into the wound for him when he had to take that last play, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was a little bit of poetic justice. I think a bunch of us did notice that. I actually happened to be down on the field as that was happening, so media is allowed to come down to the end zone with the last 4 minutes remaining. So we just happened to be lined up on that north end zone there. So I didn't have a very good view. And if you want to pull this up, John, I can share this one. But we didn't have a very good view of the touchdown and the shake. I saw that later, but we did have a fantastic view of the rest of the scores. So
Let's
just
pull
let me
this
know.
up real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we
Just
go.
let me know. So this was our view, me and my editor, Jack Carlo. Shout out to
Ooh.
Jack. This was our view of the 2-point conversion there. You mentioned number 87 coming right into our
Michael
laps
Hare.
there.
Oh, yeah.
Man. So needless to say, Folsom was rocking at this point right here. It was quite the environment, and it was fun to see.
That you had some amazing shots that you kind of have on Twitter. So make sure, again, follow you at Lots of Boba Fett. Just because, again, you had some amazing shots of what happened. I don't know if those were directly yours or if those were, directly from yours.
You can actually see me in the ESPN broadcast. You can see me holding my phone up right here. So maybe you can't see the face, but you can see the top of my Nuggets hat and my beard down below my face.
Oh, we got to talk about what real quick that we didn't discuss.
It was a good segue.
Yeah. Speaking of which, we didn't speak about this last week, but we were going to say, whoever lost, essentially between the two schools, was going to have to shave their beard. And I was going to wait basically until we made the announcement that we did have this little side kind of bet going on. So this is my last time for the beard for the foreseeable little while, at least. Not at this level.
Tony, he's obviously wanted to shave and just needed a reason.
Yeah, exactly. This is the convenient reason. And of course, I was putting this majestic thing up thinking we were not going to be going to double overtime, but we can get past that now.
But again, you're kind of right as well, Rick. I need to get this thing off me. It just doesn't. I need to get rid of the bolder hippiness of this. It's a little too. It really is for me. Like I got so many different colors in my beard. Just it's no longer majestic. It's bolder. It's that bolder guy.
Yeah,
you keep yours very nicely trimmed and kempt. So you know that. Anyways.
Yeah.
But besides that, let's talk about, going into overtime. What were your thoughts going in? Who did you think had the momentum?
Yeah. So honestly, I was pretty confident once they went to overtime. I'll tell you one thing, they completely shocked me. And I'm going to pose this to you guys again, because I still think they got the overtime actually wrong. But, they went on offense first, which is not something you typically ever do. And, head coach Deion Sanders, addressed that in the postgame, saying Shedeur was so hot. He had just led that drive. I wanted the ball back in his hands. The thing I will point to you guys is, aren't they supposed to flip afterwards? And I'm going in the end zone going, they shouldn't have the ball first again when that second overtime started.
Yes, I was confused about that too. So I thought that I just didn't know the rules in my head.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I've done this thing wrong my entire life. I guess I didn't know it, the rules. It's good to know I wasn't crazy, actually.
Yeah, now someone had tried to explain on Twitter that maybe you get the choice at the start of each overtime, but that's not the rule. And I see Rick shaking his head. That's not the rule. It's definitely CU should have been on defense first. The second overtime. Ultimately, it worked out, because of the penalty yardage. And again, the penalties by CSU were just mind-boggling in this game. But
Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. I'm an overtime veteran. And what I mean by that is I was in the second ever overtime with the new rules, which, the two, and then you go for two back and forth.
Yeah.
Back and
Right.
forth. So Nevada, 2 years ago, we went up there and we played one of those, and that's exactly how it was described with me. We did it per the rules. I just think that officiating crew at times was bad. They were bad.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
they did have some rough calls.
But look, let's be honest. 17 for 182 yards by CSU. A lot of that was self-inflicted. A lot of that was, and it was just. I understand the environment's hard, and some guys make some jumps here and there, but man, it just kept adding up and adding up. It was difficult, and CU had a lot of penalties too themselves. 10 penalties. It wasn't for as much yardage at 87, but still, that kind of thing went on. And this was, for me at least, it was surprising that CSU was having the time of possession, 34 to basically 25, essentially. So those kind of things, mattered. I think it made CU not feel as comfortable, but it also could be because how fast this team moves with Sean Lewis.
Yeah, exactly. And kind of being a polar opposite of Air Force, CU can't run the ball right now. I actually asked Coach Sanders that in the post game. You got to have some more balance at some point, and that's my belief. And I wanted to make sure that was his. He straight up told me that we can't run the ball effectively right now. And that's mostly an attitude. We need to start adopting more of that Air Force attitude. We're just going to jam it down your throat when we want to. And it's just not something that CU can do right now. So they really need to try and push to be more balanced in these coming weeks, or else Sanders is going to continue to get hit, and that's not a good thing.
I understand that CU was trying to use the screen game in some ways to be an extension of the running game, but it wasn't working the screen game at all. I felt like for the Buffs, they were really relying on the athleticism of their players, and sometimes you just need to give them a little scheme to get them going, because they can't always make everyone miss when they're gang tackling.
Yeah, exactly. And you look, the best the offense looked is when they actually opened up the playbook, when you were kind of forced to. When you're 98 yards to go, you really can't be relying on the bubble screens or that kind of stuff over the middle. You got to get some chunk yardage. They were able to, and that's when their offense looked at their best. But, this is something that they got to get a consistent running game moving forward.
Here's something I want your take on, Tony. Now, I'm very familiar, fortunately or unfortunately, with the special teams game for all three of our clubs. And we saw something on Saturday, the golden boy, Jace Feely, dad, NFL kicker, commentator now, sideline reporter, etc. He was basically handed that job. And then Coach Prime's guy, right, from Jackson, showed up and was very dependable, even was in the post-game conference.
Yeah. And, you could tell, man, I think the nerves had gotten to Jace there. He had looked pretty good in the first 2 weeks. Yes, he had missed one against TCU where he wasn't set, acknowledged I was not set by the time the snap came. But, he looked pretty good in the first couple of weeks. That pressure had gotten to him. I don't know if it was the atmosphere. I don't know if it was a late kickoff or Lil Wayne coming out for a concert before pregame. But he chunked that kick. That was a bad miss. And, I think Coach Sanders saw that. Maybe the moment had gotten too big for him. And again, in his post-game press conference, he's familiar with Mata. Mata had one missed kick last year at Jackson State. It was a blocked kick. He never had a true miss. And he consistently says Mata doesn't miss. He's Otto Mata. And he doesn't miss. The kid is supremely accurate. Now, he's never going to have the leg that Jace Feely does, and I think that's where you see the upside. But, man, he is right down the middle with every one of those kicks when he gets those opportunities. And it was cool to see it. I was happy for Mata because he came in and he was nails.
I was joking with John that at the end of the game, Feely and Clay Millen both hit the transfer portal.
Yeah, yes. To be honest, I wasn't really surprised with Feely's performance. Again, just from what I've seen a lot of kicks of his just haven't been right. Again, I've seen a lot of good ones where they've been long distance, like you said, but I've seen him miss a lot of ones. And again, I didn't even know if that one was tipped in this game or if it was essentially him just shanking it and having it be that way. So probably need to go back and look and see if there was a hand there. But no matter what, that was way too low, and it was going to miss. Even if it was going, if it had enough leg to it, it was just going at the wrong angle.
Yeah. We'll use a term my late grandfather would always use when we played golf together. He hit the big ball first, meaning he hit the earth before he hit the ball. So he definitely chunked that one.
That.
Yeah.
I've never heard
he hit the big ball first. So there you go. You can use that one. That's courtesy of Frank Casolo. So there you go.
Perfect. Yeah. But besides that, what were your guys' thoughts on, the Fort Wayne offense really in general? It felt like this was kind of their first, game where they started to get going. I understand, again, Matt, Mummy, last game in week 1, because they did have 2 weeks to prepare for this, as we can recall. But again, I think he had a rough week 1 because he was trying to honor, Leach and what he kind of passed down with his father in making the air raid offense. So I think he felt the pressure there. So I'm very happy for him that he was able to call a great game as well. Sean Lewis, both coordinators, honestly, Banks for the CSU defense. These guys, Kelly for CU's defense, they all called a fantastic game. It was a great game in that sense. What were your thoughts on, again, a little bit talking about, CU? They went down for their yards per carry now. They're at 2.4. At some point, do you think this line is going to get it together, or what would you start switching some guys in there? Because it felt like Bill Best was somewhat apologetic afterwards of that game and what you saw from that. Those 4 new starters basically from that came from transferring.
Yeah, I mean, you look at some of the breakdowns. I think starting a true freshman at center, he had a rough time. A lot of that movement, and you could see, both of the defensive tackles for CSU were basically lined up right in the A gap on both sides of the center there. We just couldn't generate a push. You're missing probably one of your best linemen in Van Wells. That he was a Pro Football Focus freshman All-American last year. We obviously need to get him healthy, but there just needs to be that consistent push, especially on the interior. Both of those guards, I think, have struggled at time. We didn't see a lot of Landon Beebe. He was hurt for week 1 and then, had a up and down game the last couple of weeks. I think you kind of got your starting 5 that you want to have set, but there just needs to be more consistency there. They need to get that push because they have the athletes to run the ball. You look when Dylan Edwards is in the open field, I think every defense is holding their breath. We have guys like Anthony Hankerson and Savion Wilkerson that could, pound the ball up the middle. They're those bigger backs. And hopefully we're going to see maybe one of our best backs returning from injury in Alton McCaskill. But unless that line starts to generate a consistent push, the running game is just not where it needs to be for CU right now. And honestly, probably the same could be said for CSU, as, again, kind of the same issues you see, just not getting consistent push. They were able to run the ball a little bit against CU.
No, they weren't. I mean, some of those carries were kind of junk carries at the end of the game as well. I don't know. It really felt like CSU did not have anything going. It really was either assisted by a mistake by some player afterwards. It felt like that was the way for some of these teams to move, essentially, was by penalties. And I hate watching games that do that, but this one was pretty exciting.
Yep.
But again, like you're saying, I think Bill Best was probably very frustrated with the guys that he got in there. Again, they're all transfer except for one player who's moving from right tackle to center. So that offensive line needs to get it together, honestly. But that's why he was so excited about this new recruiting class, because he said we finally got the big boys that fit the system. So it's kind of feels like, again, you have to give them time to get going with CSU when you're doing it through the means of not so much as through the portal, but I mean CSU has used the portal just as much. That needs to be noted.
The thing here's one of the things that upsets me. This is yet another case when the rich get richer. I'm not talking about rich as in success equating to wins. I'm talking you guys have had Rashard Higgins, Michael Gallup, and now Tony Horton. Holy crap. He will be playing on Sunday, and he will be a superstar. It's written all over him.
Yeah, I felt like that last year, honestly. They had him going more vertical last year. That was just the way the offense was running. Now they're doing those shallow crossers, which you've kind of spoke about how they were a little bit very hard to defend. Let's just say that. I think he had 16 receptions at the end of the day. So, yes, I've kind of seen that from him his entire kind of career. And I think that's great that he shows he can do it in different ways as well. So I think for his future, for me, man, I have a hard time putting some guys ahead of him. And I think the Senior Bowl is going to be his time to shine, and he'll earn that kind of first round, second round kind of grade.
To steal a line from Friday Night Lights, Horton, he could run, he could jump. Hell, he'll paint your what is it? Walk your dog, fill the Gatorade cooler, and paint your back porch. And he can pass. How about that throw,
yes,
Rick?
That was a great how you brought that up. Thank you.
I'll tell you, to that point, I thought BFN might be benched because they kind of had your Cordell Stewart going there. But yeah, boy, back to Mummy. Thanks for going into the playbook because it caught everybody off guard.
It was one of those things that I had said, instantly. It's one of those concerns. With a team that is that big of an underdog, that is an in-state rival, they're going to come up with some kind of trick play. So to see it that early and to see it executed perfectly by Horton it was amazing to see. And, you mentioned that Horton is the guy that's going to play on Sundays. I think Holker is the guy that's going to play on Sundays too.
Yes.
That tight end can ball.
Jim Nagy, he had some amazing catches week one as well. But Jim Nagy was like instantly saying, "Oh, I need to get my guys on this, get him kind of into the talk of, hey, we need this guy on the Senior Bowl kind of list, watch list, because again, he's very talented as well. He, besides that fumble, everything else was very, very well done by him. And go ahead.
Absolute stud. He looks like George Kittle and Travis Kelce's love child. That guy, and wait till he grows into his body there.
Frame. Yeah, I mean, he still has a lot to grow. I mean, that's the crazy thing. A lot of growing to do once he gets to that next level.
Well, you mentioned that pedigree that CSU has in wide receivers. Now we got Garrett Gilmore, we have Trey McBride, now Dalen Horker. I'm like, I don't understand where these guys keep coming from. They're beasts.
Yeah, and again, when it came to Horton, when he's done this, different kind of styles, that's really what is impressive to me, that he's being able to take these low, shallow crossers that are, basically they were basically touching the offensive line at some of those plays. They were, 2 yards apart, 3 yards apart. And he'd take that ball and then all of a sudden get, a first down out of that. So it was huge what he was able to do once he got the ball in his hands. That's what all you want to do is you when you have playmakers like a Hunter, you just want to get the ball in their hands no matter what. But again, let's kind of wrap this up a little bit when we're talking about let's talk about BFN Nicolosi, Fowler Nicolosi. Did you expect him to come out like that in his first start, throw 397 yards? Actually, excuse me. Some of that was from Horton, so you're right. That's not the complete stats. But did you expect him to do that?
No.
No.
What was he, a redshirt freshman? Kind of making his first start, hostile environment.
He wasn't even the backup last year they used again. Like they had other guys that they wanted to go with. They didn't have enough faith in him when Millen got hurt.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I mean, even you look at it, what is it, his sixth pass attempt of the game goes for 80 yards the other way. Shiloh Sanders is, I think, Mark, what is his name? Mark, whatever. The guy that was calling the game, said he was stunned like his daddy. Yeah, Mark Jackson. There you go. He's stunned like his daddy. Mark Johnson. There you go. But yeah, it was incredible to see the resolve that kid had. Now, obviously, he was picked off 3 times, but I mean, he looked poised. He was making the right read. CU just kept giving him those underneath routes, and he was gladly taking them, just kind of picking them apart. So it was impressive to see. I think CSU has a bright future with BFN.
I think so as well. And, on top of that, they have someone who's that, like I said, in Curry being that 4-star for their future. And rushing wise, they just did enough CSU to get, 102 yards. But hey, it was enough to kind of move the ball and, get, continued sustained drives, which was the most impressive thing that I think I saw in this game. Long sustained drives were happening, and they were very fast drives though still. But again, you didn't see too much of the punters, even though, again, there was a lot of punts. You didn't see them as much as I thought it would.
And it's Mark Jones. I apologize to Mark Jones of ESPN. Mark Johnson is CU's radio announcer. There we go. We got it all, guys. We got it straight. And by we, I mean me. So do we want to move on, guys? I know we've spent a lot of time here, and we're kind of coming up on that almost 50-minute mark, but we want to get in some week 4 previews, don't we?
Yes. Yeah, let's do it real quick. We have the CU screen up first, so let's start real quick with CU.
Yeah, so CU is going to be facing a tough one this week. Even going back to January in my way too early prediction that I put out on our website, Buffalo's Wire, please check it out. I had said the CU was going to start 3-0. Maybe I was talking with my heart there a little bit instead of my head, but I was right. That's all I'm going to count. I did have Oregon as our first loss. This is going to be a tough game, and you even see the spreads opened at. It was 19 points. It's already moved up to 21.5 after that game ended. To me, honestly, I'm going to be crushing that point spread. If it was me betting on the game, I would be taking the 21 points at CU. But, this is going to be a tough game. You have a very efficient Oregon offense. You see a guy like Bo Nix, 8 touchdowns, no interceptions. You see a running game that's averaging over 7 yards a carry as opposed to Colorado that can't, barely above 2. Yes, they don't have a very good defense. It's kind of almost the same thing you see with CU where you're going to have points scored on you, but I think you're just going to outscore the team. I think it will be a high-scoring game. Ultimately, I think Oregon's going to score too much for them. The one maybe silver lining I could see is that while both teams don't have defenses that consistently stop you, CU is able to generate turnovers. I think they have the most turnovers in the country right now. So while, yes, they give up yardage, they are very opportunistic. So maybe this could be something where CU gets a big momentum shift with a couple turnovers. But again, you look at a guy like Bo Nix, who's been very careful with the ball so far this year.
So do you think they have to be aggressive essentially on defense and basically essentially cause some miscues?
Yeah, I think so. I think they definitely have to maybe bring some blitzes. They tried to against CSU, even in that last Holker touchdown. They definitely brought a blitz, and they tried to play man up on top of that. If those blitzes can get home, maybe we could generate some of those turnovers. But again, I think that's too tall of an order going into Eugene.
Yeah. I agree with you, though. It feels like it's going to be a loss. Anyways, so we'll move on real quick to how about we move on to CSU? They have Middle Tennessee. For me, Middle Tennessee, they've kind of faced some tough opponents. Obviously, they faced at Alabama, at Missouri versus Murray State. That was their only win. But again, they handled Missouri very well. That loss was only 23-19. It really was something where, again, I think Missouri is a quality opponent, and so I think it is going to be a tough opponent for CSU. Very similar kind of things they'll be seeing is it's a 4-3 defense with a hybrid kind of that everyone's doing a lot of hybrid zone coverages. When it comes to this Middle Tennessee team, they were having some trouble running the ball the past few years, but they seem to have gotten that kind of taken care of, and that seems to actually be a strength of theirs, at least these last few weeks. So in general, I think Middle Tennessee is a good team, but they haven't really had a chance to really expand themselves into getting their offense down. I think again, when you need the money to face Alabama and Missouri, and you need that money to come in, it's hard to get into a role, at least with your team.
Right, and you look at Middle Tennessee State. They actually have some balance to their offense. As you said, they have a run game that's averaging 4.5 yards a carry here, which to Rick, that's not going to look like a lot. They're over 7. But to us that are averaging, 2 yards a carry, get out the way. Those are big rushing numbers right there. So, you look, a team that did beat you up last year. Obviously, you get them on the road now this year, kind of hoping maybe you could play off that revenge game mentality. I'm hoping there's not a letdown. They were very impressive against CU, but it's easy to get up for your in-state rival. Can you get up and play at that same level against Middle Tennessee State? I really hope they can.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's one of those things where it's going to be difficult to get up and get going. But I think they're a well-coached team, and this is a real test for them now in the sense that, hey, your season's kind of on the line here. You need to get your 6 wins to be able to get into a bowl game. So they can't go 0-3. This is, in my opinion, a must-win for them. And I think it's still going to be actually a fairly tight game. I don't see CSU being able to separate themselves until they have some balance.
Yeah, and you look at any kind of those games where you see less than a field goal spread when it opens up in Vegas. I think it was Middle Tennessee State was a 2.5-point favorite. You know it's going to be a close game.
Yeah, they're not giving you much room there.
No, not at all.
I think CSU will come out with this, but for me, again, I think this is a tight one. I don't think BFN is going to have that same kind of game. I think, again, he's going to just be looking to distribute the ball and let Horton do the rest kind of thing. But again, I think this will be a nice win for them to kind of calm down and feel like, hey, we have a win now. Let's get going back with our season. Rick. Hey, let's start talking about who Air Force is facing.
Well, going into another Friday night contest of all things, back-to-back Fridays, this team's riding high. We got a couple injuries we're dealing with. Our nose guard, Peyton Zadroik, left the game early in the first quarter, did not return. I do not expect to see him for this contest. I mentioned Jerome Galliard earlier. He'll probably be a game time decision as well. So, we're going to be down a little bit, but this team is about depth. When we did our preview, I initially thought that this would be our first loss of the year in San Jose State, and specifically just because Chevin Cordero looked like a possible potential pro candidate at quarterback. Now, he still has looked very well. This team, however, they did play in week 0. They're 1-3 now. They have on a weekly basis looked even less impressive, if that was possible. Losing at home to Oregon State, losing on the road to Toledo. So they get to go back home, and they get to face an Air Force team that found out that Sam Houston really has a good defense, and we know that because next week it was like butter and a hot knife. So hopefully we can capture some of that magic, mix it up a little bit, and if they do stack the middle, which I expect them to do, back to John Lee Eldridge, back to Jalen Johnson, back to Aiden Calvert, give it to somebody on the edge, and then throw a pass or two.
Those passes seem to be hitting as well, that when they're going. So that's nice to see. When you have 4 attempts, hey, they've made the most of it. So where do you have this is a win? Sorry, I didn't catch that real part at the end.
Well, I think we'll do our score predictions here in a second, but this defense isn't going anywhere. So I hope Mr. Cordero brings his lunch pail, because he's gonna need a snack at some point.
Yeah. All right, Tony, let's start with you real quick as we get here to the hour mark. What are your thoughts on the Buffs?
So I do think it will be high scoring. I have Oregon winning 45-35.
Ooh, I have Oregon winning as well. I think it will be a score around 35-31.
Ooh, okay.
I truly believe if Travis Hunter was available, we might be talking a big upset. With that being said, I'm thinking 38-31 Oregon.
Yeah, it's just hard to go against Oregon right now, especially since they're one of the few teams ahead of CSU in the rankings for a reason. So we'll move on to CSU versus Middle Tennessee. I think this is going to be a closer game than maybe people anticipate after this kind of big kind of emotional ride they've been on. But I think that they can get this done. It's going to be a little bit more low-scoring affair, at least for CSU, I feel like. But I could again see Middle Tennessee being able to eke this out. So I have this being a 24-21 game CSU winning. Why don't we go to Rick first since Mountain West on the thoughts of CSU?
I think they're due for a win too. I'm with you. I think it's going to be close. Definitely, they showed me something this week. I'm going to go 27-20 Rams.
So I also think the Rams will show up. I think it'll maybe be a little slower starting than last week was with all the scoring and getting hyped up. I think they do pull it out. I will go 27-24 CSU.
Ooh, those are some close ones. And why don't we get on going to Air Force? Start us off.
All right, Air Force. Well, I'm swapping from my original predictions. I'm gonna say that the Falcons win this game. I think it's going to be tight for a while. We're going to a different time zone. We're playing on a Friday again, which isn't as bad when you played on a Friday previously, so you don't get that short week hangover. But I'm going to call Air Force 27, the San Jose State Spartans 17.
Ooh. All right, Tony, you want to take this one next?
Sure. This is, again, just another one of those tough ones. Air Force is a 3.5-point favorite even on the road. So, you'd think usually with that 3-point spread that Air Force would be about a touchdown favorite on a neutral site. Usually the home teams get that 3-point spread. Over-under is only at 46, so it's probably going to be low scoring with Air Force's defense. I will go 24-17 Falcons.
I think I'm going to be a little bit different than you guys. I think Air Force is going to keep rolling, honestly. I think they're going to get 34 and they're going to do their defensive thing, and they're going to come out and allow only 10 points. I think this is going to be them, they know what they're doing. I think they're going to be taking care of business.
Fly, Falcons, fly.
That's funny. You just picked our point averages for the year.
Really? There we go. Well, that was on the money. Well, did not plan on that, but hey guys, anything else that you want to, shout out if you have any other projects going on or anything like that, if you have an article as we get out of here?
We're going to be keeping you guys up to date for everything Buffs related. We're going to be coming into basketball season here really soon. I'm actually hoping to be out in Vegas for when the women's team tips off against national champion LSU.
Ooh.
So stay tuned to Buffalo's Wire. And again, follow me on Twitter at Lots of Boba Fett for all your Buffalo needs.
Man, that's a hard one to follow. Jeez.
Yes.
That sounds amazing. I of course am also multi-sporting at the Air Force Academy. The success in our other sports isn't as profound, but we do have this new thing called baseball that was created in the 1800s. So it's good. And, as far as what's on tap, got some guests lined up for this pod in the future. Brad Roberts is committed. We're going to have the senior associate athletic director from Air Force here, Navy Week. And, I'm just looking forward to not only doing the stuff I do, but contributing to you guys because you guys put out a good product.
Yeah, perfect, guys. Well, for me, I still have the Orange and Brew podcast coming later in this week to talk about the Broncos and that Hail Mary and what kind of ensued after that game. That was another crazy one. So if you went to bed, you saw something crazy when you went on Sunday morning, beginning, crazy at kind of the end. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I think that does it for us. We're going to head out of here. So be well and take care.
Go and try your luck. Touch me in again, we let it rain. Please don't start us up. Got that black and white, that yin and yang. Mr. Officer, please don't search us. We don't got a thing. Tell her park it up. Then that be poking out them jeans. Up and sparking up. Let the fire turning up, trying to put the face to the name. Pull up and I and I'm swerving. If a try to holler, she gon' curve.